They moved me, and I opened my eyes for a couple seconds and looked at the fireman and said, "Help me."
A Codega is a guide and a storyteller, escorting you through the night, lighting the way, warding off thieves, ghosts, demons, and other oddities. Along the journey, his companions would often share with him the most curious of stories that he'd record in his Codex. Perhaps you just might find yourself traveling with a Codega and sharing one of yours. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Codega's Codex of Curiosities. This is our first episode on this brand new show. It's going to be a great time and a great adventure, and I'm really looking forward to traveling along with you as we delve into all of these strange, unexplainable oddities around the world that are happening, but seem to be getting covered up. And so that's what I'm here to do. I'm here to take you on this adventure and tell you about these stories and these experiences and have my guests tell their experiences. And it's up to you then to see what you do with them. All right. So a little bit of housekeeping. To really help my show, I'm going to ask you all, please just share it. It's an easy thing, click on that share button, share it with your friends, share it with your family, share it with your girlfriend, your boyfriend, your husband, your wife, your coworkers. Heck, even share it with your enemies. I don't care. Let them hear me talk and let them make up their mind for themselves. So, one last bit of housekeeping before we bring on our amazing guest. Click that like. Yeah. If you're new here, subscribe and have the bell hit for notifications to stay up to date on all of the new content. Okay, so today's guest is a great friend of mine, Matt Emch. He's been on before when I was the host of the Lost Frequency podcast, and he has told this amazing story, The Beast of Youngstown. And, I'm sure many of you have heard it. And if not, I'd urge you to go back into my channel and find the episode. I believe it's called The Terrifying Encounter at the Warehouse. I'll put a little tag up here for it. But Matt has more stories than that, more experiences. And so tonight we're going to focus on those. We might jump a little bit back into the Beast, but other than that, we're going to focus on some amazing other experiences that Matt has. So without further ado, I'm going to bring Matt to the stage. Hey there, Matt. How you doing?
Hey, good, Rye. Thanks for having me. It's an honor.
Oh, the honor's all mine. The honor's all mine. I'm really happy to have you back. And I'm actually very happy to have you as our first guest. Well, my first guest on my new show, Codega's Codex of Curiosities. So before we go too far and start talking about your experiences and whatnot, why don't you tell my guests, and I'm sure they know of you. So why don't you tell them where they can find you?
Oh, well, actually, you can find me if you just easiest, you put even my name in on YouTube. You'll get tons of different interviews that I've done before I started my channel. But specifically, I want you guys to find me at Planet 412. And before you had to spell it out, so I didn't get that actual moniker. It used to have to spell out the actual words Planet 412. You don't have to do that anymore because I've overtaken anybody else that had that. So if you just put in, just like you see on my name right there on the screen, Planet and the numbers 412, my channel will pop right up. And I would appreciate, just like Riot asked you for him, you subscribe, hit that notification bell, and the like button. But one of the things that I've really made a point to mention to everybody, if you're supporting someone's channel, If you care about the person that is running that, it's just as important to have you finish the video. Let the ads play if you don't mind. I know it's irritating. You want to hit skip. Easiest thing to do to fix that is just get the premium, subscription to YouTube, because what happens with people that own channels like Ryan and I, the ads help
Codega
us.
is a guide
So
and a
if someone gets a
storyteller,
premium,
escorting you through the
it
night,
helps us.
lighting the
But if
way,
you skip
warding off
those ads, it
thieves,
hurts us. And if
ghosts,
you don't
demons, and
finish
other
the
oddities.
video, it hurts. So if you
Along
don't feel
the
like finishing
journey,
our
his
video,
companions would often
let it
share with
play
him
and
the
walk
most
away, and
curious
that
of
will help
stories
us a
that he'd
lot.
record in his Codex.
That's where you can find me.
Perhaps
Thank you.
you just might find
Awesome. I
yourself
really
traveling
appreciate
with
that.
a
And that's some valuable
Codega and
information for us
sharing one of yours.
podcasters or us hosts. It's just asking our viewers and our listeners, just finish watching or listening, have it just playing in the background.
Yeah.
That is awesome. Okay. So Matt, why don't you tell me what Planet 412 means to you? Like where did that moniker come from?
Well, you're going to be basically one of the first that I've ever explained this to. So I'm actually in the process of, I'm making a short video, actually, about the meaning. Everyone's been asking, but I will do this as being on your.
Okay, you can keep it shorter. You don't have to go into too much detail, so you can leave that
So-
detail for, but yes, let's hear it.
So just to let everybody know, it has a lot of personal meaning to me. So the number one reason, that used to be my old address in Youngstown. When I grew up on the north side of Youngstown on the street called Laura Avenue, Lora. If you're from the on the north side where it is. The house doesn't exist anymore. It's just a lot. But 412 was our address. My dad used to play 412 boxed in the lottery, and he won it like 4 or 5 times.
Really?
The number specifically and strangely for me, my entire life from childhood till today, the number in some form or fashion, at least once or twice a day, every day of my life, I see it either on the clock, on a computer, if I'm on a website, something. For some reason, I always see those numbers together. It's usually more often than not either 4:12 a.m. or p.m. I see one of those every day for some odd reason. It's just really strange. It's connected to me. And then I started looking even more into, maybe there's a meaning of those numbers. So I Googled it. And my wife, who you just met, Stacy, she's very skeptical about things. And when this popped up and we started reading the actual meanings behind the number combination 412, her jaw dropped and she looked at me and said, "Oh my God, that's like a definition of you." So there's a lot of spiritual meaning, angelic meaning behind the numbers 412. There's a guardian angel 412. For those that don't know me and don't know some of the specifics, I've been through a lot of physical issues throughout my life. I actually got, this past Friday, had my 29th surgery in my lifetime. I played college ball. I had 14 surgeries on my left knee. I had it replaced about 6 months ago. There were some other more serious things that went down. I actually almost died a few times. In fact, April of 2022, I lost my right leg below the knee. I had 10 surgeries in a year's time, and I actually had 3 instances where I almost lost my life. The third, my heart stopped for over 90 seconds, and I had a near-death experience that we'll talk about tonight.
Yes, exactly.
And if you Google that and you look it up, I'm telling you right now, as you read it, or there's videos on YouTube about Guardian Angel 412 or the meaning of it, is like a bio of me. It's really insane. So we read through this one. It was one of the first 2, ones that popped up websites, and my wife ran through it, and I mean, literally our mouths were open. We could not believe at like one after another. It was like me. So it just has a lot of deep, very, very important meaning. The address might seem non-consequential, but it meant a lot to me. I grew up in that house and lived there till I was 18, 19 years old. And, it just has a lot of different, I've gotten, I live I'm in Northeast Ohio. So Youngstown is an hour. It's right smack dab in the middle of both Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania and Cleveland, Ohio. You're an hour from either. So if you look at Ohio on the map, we're at the top right corner, right on the PA line. So we're right next to Pennsylvania. You can cross over into Sharon, Pennsylvania in 20, 25 minutes, and you're at the area code 412, which a lot of people have thought, oh, you must be talking about Pittsburgh. In Pittsburgh, it's 412. No, even though I'm a Steelers fan, it's not their code. So that's just a real quick, little rundown about what that.
And that's fascinating. So I'm a little bit of a jack of all trades, and one of those things that I did was, I took some time looking into numerology. Now, numerology, of course, you're adding up the numbers to get a, like a base number, which is 7, and 7 is the number of communication, and I find that pretty fitting for you, because what do you do? Well, are you not an announcer for football, and now you have your own channel as well, YouTube channel. I think communication is something that is key in your life as well. So that's
wild, Rye. Thank you. Yeah. Just as Rye touched on, I'm a sports broadcaster. I've been in sports broadcasting for 17 years. I have my own show called Just Football with Matt Emch on Western Reserve Radio. If you go to westernreserveradio.com, you hit talent and staff, you'll get to see me in my bio, figure out who I was when I played ball. I played through college, and I've been calling high school, college, and semi-pro football games for 12 years. I just went through my 12th season, so I've had a lot of time behind the mic. So this is second nature for me. But Ryan, touching on what you said about communication, I have always had an easy time speaking to large groups of people. I look back to when I was a senior in high school. I'll just real quick touch on this.
Of course.
An award that went to the best offensive lineman in the area, the state of Ohio, and they only gave one out in the state, called the Mack Truck Award, and I won. When I went to the dinner, there was one from Ohio and one from PA. That's the only two states they did it. The R&R Mack Truck Company, trucking company, gave them out, and I received the award and gave a speech in front of over 1,500 people at their Christmas party. I didn't sweat it. I wasn't nervous. I loved it. I enjoy being in front of people. Just something I've always had an ability to do. So that really blows my mind that you said that about that number 7 of those numbers brings up communication.
Yeah, it definitely does. It definitely does, and actually there's a lot of 7s that come up in my life too, which is communication as well. And I feel that I've always been really good with communicating with people as well. So we definitely have that commonality between us. Now, you were saying when you're talking about all your surgeries, there was 3 times where you almost lost your life, and one where your heart stopped for 90 seconds. Can we go into that? And I want you to, tell us a little bit about what happened in that time. I know it's very an emotional kind of thing, but I would definitely like to hear that.
Yeah, it's definitely, anything that I discuss when I'm on this side of the camera, when I'm the one interviewed, no matter what it's about, if it's about my Dogman experience, the majority of anything I speak about is very emotional. It takes me back, and there's a lot of, PTSD and things that have occurred. So as I touched on, in April of 2022 was when a landslide, if you will, of surgeries occurred, where in a year's time I had 10. Wow. I ended up getting my right leg below the knee amputated, unfortunately, which, for anyone to lose a limb is just, you just can't imagine how ungodly horrible it is. But to have been an elite college athlete and then to have your leg taken is like that extra kind of punch in the gut. And,
I can imagine. I definitely could imagine.
It was very difficult. I've pretty much embraced it now. Now I had my 29th surgery on Friday. I had to, basically they had to go and they had to cut the scar out on my amputated leg and move it, because when I wore my prosthetic, the nerve was being triggered when I would walk. So it was causing
Ouch.
pain and discomfort. So he basically just moved the scar up. So that's the surgery I had. It wasn't extremely serious. It's very painful. I have sutures in my leg and my freedom is stolen again. So whenever you have surgery like that and you have a prosthetic, you can't wear it. You're in a situation. I didn't, for a long time. Anyone who has an amputation of a lower limb goes through this period where the body has to get used to it, the skin has to get tough, the suture line has to heal enough, and then you go through this long process of getting fitted. A cast is made for the prosthetic, then they have to make the prosthetic, then you have to wear a practice one where they make sure it all fits, and then they have to fine tune it, and then they make the so it takes a long time for you to rejoin the rest of the human race and become normal.
Yeah.
So, I had to learn to rewalk again. I had to learn.
Wow.
I felt, and you feel separated from the rest of everybody. You feel different, and you are.
But I want to say though, Matt, you're anything but normal, and that
Right.
I mean that in the best of compliments.
Yeah, no, I definitely, I've embraced. There's a lot of rarities about me, and I've embraced them. And just to let everybody know, I have embraced, being an amputee. It's a whole nother family that I'm a part of.
Yeah.
Great human beings in this world doesn't make you any less. More than anything, it just it opens your mind to different things. So what occurred was, just like almost 100% of us who would lose a lower limb, you go through a period of where you're trying to adjust to not fall. Well, I fell a couple times when I had sutures in.
Wow.
A couple times it fell, and I literally the last time fell where I went straight down and hit that amputated leg. So what ended up happening was some of the sutures became unraveled, and I ended up getting a hole about like that big form on the suture line. So my leg was open. You could literally look inside. It wasn't bleeding, but it was open. So I had home health care coming literally every day, and they were getting concerned. I took a picture. They sent it to my surgeon, who was out of the country, but his nurse, his assistant, she showed all the other surgeons in the practice. Youngstown, by the way, amazing people. And they all looked at it and they flipped out. They said, "You got to tell him he needs to go to emergency. Something horrible can happen. They'll fast track him at the hospital like a heart attack patient, blah, blah, blah." So I went. Long story short, they didn't fast track me. I sat there for 5 hours. They sent me down to the triage nurse, looked at it, wrapped it back up. They sent me down to X-ray and forgot about me for an hour. Hit hour 5 and I lost it. Called my wife and said, "Come pick me up. I'm going home. I haven't seen a doctor. I'm not staying here any longer." Fast forward to we're on the way home, and I had rolled myself outside. I was waiting outside the hospital. No one ever checked on me or anything.
Jeez.
Got
Yeah.
myself in a car, and we were roughly 2 minutes from home, at a stoplight, turning right, and the telltale noticeable sign of water running was in the car. And we look at each other like, what the heck is that noise? We're looking around. It's not raining or anything. My wife is looking at me like, "Wow, what is that sound?" Finally, I look between my leg, and what had occurred was the artery blew in my leg and was literally like a stream pouring out of my leg. And I'm not like boop 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 boop. It was just shh, and it had already soaked the carpet of the car. So the noise we heard is like, if you've ever got a carpet wet, it doesn't make noise until it's been sopped full of liquid. So car at the hospital, it must have started bleeding right away as soon as I got in her and didn't even feel it. So I grabbed my leg and blood is shooting through my finger. And I apologize to anybody that is getting weak or, go walk away for a few minutes.
Yeah.
Blood is spraying everywhere. It was mass hysteria. My wife pulls into a gas station. My 14-year-old daughter was in the back seat. They jump out. I'm trying to hold my life in my leg, and it's just going through my fingers. And they jump out. They're trying to find something in the car to help. And the lady that worked at the gas station had noticed them running around in craziness and came over. She had been smoking a cigarette and asked if my wife needed help. My wife screams, "Call 911. My husband's bleeding to death." And the lady calls, and they didn't get there right away.
Of course.
What happened was she ended up calling some guy that worked there who just so happened to be an ex-combat medic. And he came out and was trying to help. He was trying to fashion a makeshift
tourniquet,
and it slowed it a little bit. It was kind of one of those things you put on the back of a truck and ratchet.
Yeah.
As that's going on, a doctor had been driving by and saw all the craziness, and he told my wife, "I don't know why something just said something's wrong. I should stop." And he stopped. And I remember him coming up next to me. And I was at this point, I started losing consciousness. I was feeling myself slipping away. And he came up and he said, "I'm a doctor. Do you need help?" And they screamed, "He's bleeding to death." And he came and looked. He said, "We have to get the bleeding stopped." And they're trying to get this tourniquet on my leg. And I finally grabbed his hand and I showed him where they need to put it. And I looked at him and I said, "You're going to have to do it." I said, I'm going. And they're yelling at me, "Sir, you keep awake." And I'd lost it once. And my wife, we laugh about it now, but it wasn't funny at the time.
Of course.
4 times. The second time my wife cracked me, she screamed, she whacked me really hard. And I opened my eyes, and the last time it happened, I knew I knew I was dying. And I looked at my wife and daughter and I told them I was sorry. And I started to, dip out, and I just started to see black. And the last thing I remember was hearing my wife and my daughter scream. My wife was screaming, "Matt, no, Matt, no." And my daughter was screaming, "Daddy, Daddy, Daddy." And I saw black. And next thing I remember snippets of little things happening where I apparently had opened my eyes. What I remember was saying I'm sorry, seeing black, and the next thing I remember, I was standing up outside somewhere. I had my leg, and I was looking around, and there were people all around me. It wasn't a bright light or anything.
Yeah.
It was like I was outside, and there were people, hundreds of people around me, but I couldn't see them. They were like out of focus. They were all blurry. Some were
Like out of phase or something almost.
They were facing me, and others, their backs were turned to me, but they were all around me everywhere. Some were looking at me, obviously. And then I just got this strange feeling that somebody was over my right shoulder.
Okay.
And I looked, and my mom and dad are no longer with us. My dad died of pancreatic cancer 11 years ago. And
I'm sorry for your loss.
Thank you. And we lost my mom. We just had her 4-year anniversary a couple months ago, and she died from complications from lupus, which I inherited from her.
Wow.
I turned, and my mom and dad were standing there. And it was as real as you and I standing next to each other. As my wife was just in here, we are trying to fix the camera situation a little bit ago. She was right next. The same situation. It wasn't dreamlike.
Yeah.
It was like I am lucid and awake right now, and they were there. And I immediately turn and I start bawling my eyes out and crying and hugging and kissing my parents. And how is this possible? How are you here? Oh my God. And I don't remember everything I said, but it was just, I just was bawling.
Of course.
My mom cried, and my dad, he never spoke. He just smiled. And um, he looked at me and just had a big smile on his face. He's a big guy before, and always been a big guy. And my dad was a big man, and he just put his arm around me. So he was to my right. He put his left arm around me, and it came all the way across my back into my other shoulder. And my mom, I'm half Lebanese and half German Irish. My mom was 100% Lebanese. She looked like a little Italian lady, but she was all Lebanese, and she was very short. And so under 5 feet, and I'm 6'4". So I was always looking down at her, and she's on me, and she was crying too. And I said, how is this possible? I miss you. And she said, I miss you too, honey. We love you. And I kept asking her, how is this possible? How is it possible? And she finally had grabbed my hands in front of me, and she looked at me and said, honey, we love you. She said, but you can't stay here. Oh. I immediately had this just immense sense of I wanted to be. I was like, what are you talking about? I haven't seen you in years. I'm not going anywhere. And she looked at me and she said, honey, you have to go. It's not your time. And as she's saying that, and I'm crying and telling her no, she smiled and she looked at me like she always used to, touched the right side of my face with her hand. And the second her hand touched my cheek, I felt it, and I saw a flash of light, and I was laying on my back on the operating table at Trumbull Memorial Hospital in Warren, Ohio. They were getting ready to perform the surgery to try and save my life. They had just told my wife that say goodbye, he's most likely to make it. I had lost about 3 pints of blood. I was completely almost bled out. I was blue, according to everyone. I was shaking horribly. I was so cold. I remember that. I remember I was crying because of my mom.
Yeah.
And the surgeon that saved my life, her name is Dr. Matt, an amazing surgeon. She put her hand on my head and she got close and she said, Matt, we're gonna save you, honey. We're gonna take care of you. Now, she had just told my wife, we don't think he's gonna make it, but you don't tell a patient that.
Of course not. Of course not.
And they put me out, and they did save my life. They had to give me over 10 pints of blood, I think 10 bags, which I don't know.
Yeah.
Evens out to 2 giant bags of plasma. And the next day I woke up in the ICU and I felt normal.
Wow.
Myself. And they had left the opening on it just to make sure there was no other bleeding, anything. And I spent the next, I don't know, half a day in the ICU, and she took me back in surgery and closed it up, where I was myself, joking, cracking jokes. In fact, she told my wife after the surgery, she said, I love him. He's so silly. They pulled me into the operating room, and it was one of those rooms you see on TV where they have the glass and the people can be a surgery and all. It was filled.
Wow.
People could not believe that I had lived. They all were in awe that I was acting normal, that I was just myself. And I had at one point, they're getting ready, and I looked at all the people. I'm like, we got a big crew here today. And I go, hey, everybody. And they all started laughing, and I cracked a couple of jokes, and they all laughed, and they're just like, looking at me, and I remember this one resident, she just had this look of awe, and I looked at her, I said, "You okay?" She goes, I watched you die yesterday. She said, "Your heart stopped for over 90 seconds." She goes, "I can't believe you're still here." And they, they went through the code blue with me and
Yeah.
everything. My heart stopped.
I have a couple of questions about this. So first of all, Matt, how long were you out from you passing out, like you going out at the gas station, to you waking up at the table? Like I know you said your heart stopped for 90 seconds, but how long of a time was that? Was that like 20 minutes, 25 minutes?
From what I have been told, I had been awake a couple times.
Okay.
So my wife told me when she got to the hospital that I was awake, and I was angry because I had just put on a brand new Carhartt t-shirt that day, and they cut it, and I was yelling about cutting
My new Carhartt t-shirt.
and the first thing I said to her is, "They cut my goddamn Carhartt t-shirt off." And she's covered in blood and completely in shock
Yeah.
and freaking out. And then she said, "I lost consciousness again." So there were times that like when they were putting me, I remember losing consciousness in the car and seeing black. They said when the fire truck got there, I looked at one point, they moved me and I opened my eyes for a couple seconds and looked at the fireman and said, "Help me." And then I lost consciousness again. I just remember going out in the car and seeing black, and then that happening.
And then
But there were two instances where apparently I woke up. So
I wonder if it's like your body wise, not your consciousness or your soul, but your body reacting, "Help me," whereas your consciousness was off. Yeah. But sorry, go ahead with how long of a time do you?
I would say probably from the time they got me on the operating table, from I know I lost my consciousness and thought I was dead, because I knew, again, it's really freaky and disturbing, right? I felt my life slipping away. I mean, I literally knew I was dying. Like as the blood was going, like I'm feeling like I'm like you're dipping out.
Yeah.
And it was surreal. I would say probably 15 minutes, from 15, 20 minutes, because they said, from where the ambulance got at the gas station, normally it would take 5 to 7 minutes to get to the hospital from there. They said they got there in less than 2 minutes.
Wow.
From the gas station. And as soon as I got in, they apparently were waiting. The trauma team was all suited up and ready. And my wife got there just a couple minutes after they brought me in. And as soon as she walked in, they said, "Say goodbye to him. You're probably not going to see him again." So they were ready, and they bing got there. And I was in surgery for a few hours. In fact, the trauma team was actually, they told me they were literally almost to their cars. They were outside of the hospital going home, and all of the stuff went off, and they got the call, "Turn around, come back. We have a level 1 trauma coming in." And they saved my life, man.
Wow. Thank God, Matt. We should be calling you like mystical or magical or miracle Matt.
Well, we would have never met, right? This was before I had.
Of course.
This was before I went to Josh Turner's conference last September. I would have never met anybody. I wouldn't have my channel. None of what I'm doing now would be possible. And I've always been a firm believer my whole life, and especially after all of the surgeries. And I've gotten numerous having lupus, it's an autoimmune disease, which definitely causes problems for people when you have surgeries. It makes you very, you're high risk for infection. And I've gotten really bad infections and almost died quite a few times from those. The closest time I ever died before that, actually, my heart stopping, was I had another instance where I had 2 ulcers in my stomach, and then they were bleeding ulcers, but then I took what's called naproxen, a prescription anti-inflammatory, and it caused those to start bleeding horribly and a blood vessel to burst in my stomach, and I was bleeding internally.
Oh my God.
Anybody that knows about hemoglobin levels, my hemoglobin level went to 2.1, which they said there are people that have been shot multiple times in wartime situations that had higher hemoglobin levels than I did. So I made it through that one as well. I've just come to believe that I have a purpose for something, and I truly mean that.
It sounds so cliche, but it is the truth, and I was going to say also, like everything happens for a reason. That sounds so cliche, but it's the truth, like this is the truth. This is your truth.
You just beat me to it. That's where I was leading up to. I was going to say, I've always been a believer of everything happens for a reason. Everything is written in stone before time began. And, certain other things in my life from the time I was a child, I always had this immense, strong feeling that I can't explain to this day, that I was meant for something bigger. That's all I can say in it. And if anyone gets offended by that, I apologize. I'm not act like, oh, I'm special. It was just something I had innate, like a voice saying, Matt, you were meant for something different, for something bigger than normal. It was just this super strong feeling that I always had growing up till to this day. I feel that for some reason, there's some reason I'm here other than just a normal, just life. And I've had some really crazy stuff happen to me, and it's still happening.
Yeah, we're going to get to that here right away. And I've had a theory. When you're saying things are written in stone, I would say to an extent, not everything. I believe fate brings us to these crossroads. Fate brings us to these choices, and because we have the gift of free will, we can choose to go this way or we can choose to go this way. And if you follow your path, like that. Uh-oh.
There you are.
All right. Yeah, my other camera seems to have just died on me, which is fine. But yeah, so fate brings us. I was saying fate brings us to these crossroads, and it's up to us to make that choice. Are we going to go left, or are we going to go right? Are we going to take the right path, or we're going to take the other path? And it's up to us, So why don't we just take a quick 30-second break? I'm just going to fix my camera here, and we're just going to take a quick 30-second break, okay?
Click that like. Yeah! If you're new here, subscribe and have the bell hit for notifications to stay up to date on all of the new content.
All right. Yeah, we're both having a little bit of problems with our cameras today. I know that we tried setting up you were trying to set up your camera and having issues, and I'm using a new camera as well. And apparently it shuts off around the maybe an hour mark, I guess, or something like that, because it's been running for about an hour. But with that now, why don't we move on? Move on to, well, we'll do a little touch on your the other experience of your life, and I was saying the beast of Youngstown, right? It's Youngstown,
Ohio. Yeah.
Youngstown, Ohio. Yeah. And you had shared a picture, and I'm going to share that picture. And so not only does Matt have this near-death experience, I'd say he has a near-death experience when he was, and how old were you? Were you 12 or 13?
14.
14 at the time. So he's 14 at the time.
A near-death experience of a different type. Yeah.
Yes, like watching your life pass before you in front of your eyes. And just for those people who have not seen this, let me just throw it up like this. Here we go. Here we go. I'm going to present a picture, and this is the picture that you had drawn of your of the beast.
By Sibylla Irwin from Sketching Encounters.
Yes.
Now, everyone that's watching this, that right there was made after a year of me and Sibylla Irwin working together. She's a graphic artist, a renderer, and she rendered after just countless months of us together and me telling her what we saw. And if you want to know what I saw, that is the best description, the best picture that you can have, other than being able to go back in time, take an actual snapshot at the event. That's what we saw right there.
I think this is the best thing to do, is to sit here and look at it like this, and not, I don't want to be back there taking a picture. I don't want to be taking a snapshot.
Yeah, I tell you, anybody there doing that would have known they were there, and they wouldn't have been able to do much of that.
Let's talk about this, because this is also going to be just an audio as well. So this beast that we're seeing here, and I call it a beast, because I think Dogman just does not suit this.
I it was something different. I think it was a demon, possibly. It was supernatural, 100%.
Yeah.
There was multiple times of multiple supernatural events that occurred through the event. Number one, if you're looking at that, you see its eyes, and that is the first thing that all four of us noticed when it looked at us after my buddy had tripped and kind of fell over himself and made a loud noise. Drew its attention. It snapped its head. It looked at us, and its eyes were the first thing that grabbed me. And right now, looking at that, I never look at this and not go back there. Its eyes were not reflecting light from eye shine, or emanating an actual power source of some type from internally, and they glowed that color.
And a question here. So they're glowing a color, like, they're glowing this yellowish, orangish color. Did that intensity ever change? Did it ever fluctuate in like dimmed or increased at all?
It was as bright as that the entire event. It never stopped.
Wow. And it almost looks like I think you've described it as like shorter, a bit of a shorter hair, like and the hair looks almost like, in this photo, it looks almost I don't want to say greasy, but shiny.
I always said this, so the hair was inch and a half at the longest. And it's because we have a dog. We've always had dogs. We get them groomed. It was like it was groomed. It was clean. And it was almost shiny. It was super tight, the hair on it. Nothing was long and scraggly or matted or anything. It was very kempt. It was just, it was odd.
Wow. So not only do you have this near death experience, being stalked in the factory, in the smelter, it's, which is crazy. Then you have your near death experience of almost bleeding out, and that's not all. Like, I'm not saying near death experiences, but then you have other experiences. So why don't we move on from this? Because oh, there goes my camera again. I'm gonna have to change that up again here. Let me just switch up to. I'm gonna switch to this other camera. Okay, we'll just go with it. So why don't you tell us a little bit more about some other experiences that you yourself have encountered?
Yeah. So, just to give everybody an idea, there were things going on in my family even before I was born. And specifically, there was something on my dad's side, something that happened to my Aunt Shirley, who's alive still. But the really noticeable events that have been occurring over the years have been on the Lebanese side of my family, So going back, and there's a lot of talk about people that are surrounded by high strangeness and that have things happen to them and follow them throughout their lives. And they think there's a lot of times a familial connection. You do hear a lot of talk of that, and I agree. Going back to before I was born, before my mom was born, my great aunt, and they were living in Lebanon. They lived on a little house by a river, and one day, so this story was told to me and my siblings numerous times by my great aunt Alice Heltu, and that Lebanese Heltu. They call it great aunt, it's Heltu. So Heltu Alice. She told this story in broken English and Lebanese, and my mom kind of had to help translate pieces of it. And what she basically said was, when she was a little girl, she was playing inside of the house. Her father was outside. She never mentioned where, my grandmother or anybody else was. They weren't there. It was just her and her dad. And he was outside working. She was playing, and she kept noticing something out of the corner of her eye, like a shadow. And then whenever she'd look, she said it was gone. There was just nothing in there. She just didn't think much of it. She said it happened 3 times. And the third time, she kept seeing it out of the corner of her eye, peripheral vision. And she said when she turned and she looked, there was a black, like just an all black shaped thing, like a man with green eyes walking towards her, basically with like this, with its hands up, like, I'm going to get you.
Like very, very zombie-ish or Frankenstein-ish kind of thing,
She described it was like a shadow.
Jeez.
And it had green eyes, and it was coming after her slowly, and she started screaming, and her father went to run in, and she made a point of always saying that their door didn't lock, but when he went, the door wouldn't open. He couldn't open it. So he started beating on the door with a cinder block, and ended up splitting it down the middle where he could at least see with his eye through the door. And she said he told her when he had split the door, he looked through and he was looking, and this thing turned around and looked at him and smiled at him. And then back around and went back up to he's going to get her.
Yeah.
And he ended up finally kicking the door open. He broke the bottom of the door and kicked it open. And he ran to her and this thing, and it dissipated. He said it just disappeared, like a shadow. Yeah. And he said too, it just looked like it was just a shadow person. And she kept saying a word that we didn't really pick up on, but years later we found out she was saying jinn. She was saying jinn.
Mm-hmm.
He ended up, when he kicked the door open, because they were by the river, the door was like kind of rotten at the bottom, was like moist.
Yeah.
And a big sliver of the door went into his leg. 3 days later, he died from gangrene.
No way.
So he died, and it was the cause of this jinn that went after my great aunt Alice. Through the years, hearing cousins, multiple cousins that are still alive, some are around my age, just talking about weird, high strangeness events occur, having dreams. I have had, to this day, I still have, like I just get a feeling, or I get, an idea something's going to happen, or I see it happen, or have a dream and it happens. And like so much so that, again, my wife,
you're speaking my language with dreams. Yeah. Definitely.
You are, Joe, for sure. Yours are incredible, and you understand. And I just have premonition that has been a norm in my life. So that it freaks my wife and daughter out. I've always been somebody that has been ultra sensitive to detail. I notice details. I've always noticed things other people don't. I've always been really on with like gut feelings. Like if I follow my gut feelings in my life, I could say 99% of the time it's right. If I listen. Knowing people just by reading them and like like that. I know if somebody, what type of person, I have things where I can read people's emotions extremely easily. I've had people say they think, hey, you sound like you're an empath. I don't know anything about that, but I have read it.
Yeah.
What
Well, you are. Well, you are.
fall under the description, not of there's, so there's three kinds of empaths.
Okay.
I fall under all three. I don't know if I am, but I definitely, for whoever made those definitions, I'm that description of that type of person, be it ultra just able to read people. I don't know, but I definitely weirdly can do and read emotions and feelings and help people get through rough things. And
Yeah, you definitely have a connection to the unseen side, like to this unseen world, that I think lives symbiotically with us, like I won't say side because it sounds like there's only one, but I believe that we are connected to so many multiple sides that live symbiotically with us.
There's a multiverse. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but
Yeah.
we talked about this recently, that we are believers of multiverses and parallel universes and world. 100%. I really believe that's true. There's so many times that these days discussions come up from people that have been in governments and things like that, or held high positions of power, that say, there's reasons movies make certain things. They're trying to desensitize you to certain things, and
Yep.
things that you would never imagine are true. Really, they're basically telling you right on the screen, this stuff's real and it's happening. And what you had said, I call it the veil.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
just
I agree. And I was just listening to another podcast where they were talking about, like they're showing things on movies. So when I was growing up many years ago, there was a movie called Something Wicked Comes This Way. Okay. And I was always forced to watch it at school growing up as a kid. And I hated it, except for one part. When they got on this carousel, they would ride the carousel and it would transport them through time, more or less. Like it would progress or degress them, so they could go really young or really old. And I was listening to another podcast where they were talking about these carousels being some sort of portal. And like it was just like this eureka moment, I came to this conclusion. I'm like, again, here we are with Hollywood or writers. And I'm not saying it's just Hollywood. It could be that people are tapping into something that is a truth, and they don't even know it's the truth, but they're tapping in and they're writing it from the ether. They're grabbing it from the ether and they're just producing it. It could be something like that as well. Like, I'm not saying everything that's shown is on purpose. I think sometimes there is like these accidental truths being released because people are just discovering them.
Yeah. And there's a lot of truth to myth and legend.
Yes.
Somehow, for that reason, you go just like to Native American, Indians, and just generations of the way that they speak. They tell stories when they talk, and they talk of Sabe or Sasquatch and other, and this veil that lifts, and you're able to walk into other realms
okay. I have had this question, and this just came to me recently. And since you brought up Sasquatch, I want to see what your thoughts are on this one. Okay. So the natives used to have this thing, and I don't know if you know of it, called counting coup or counting coup. Have you ever heard of counting coup before? What it is to show your bravery against your enemy. It's kind of like a victory or dominance over your enemy by performing an act that is, like sometimes they would sneak into the enemy's camp, leave something there or take something. And it was kind of like, aha, I did this, you didn't catch me. Okay. So that brings me to Sasquatch, Bigfoot, slapping people's houses. Okay. It's all about not being caught, doing something and not being caught to your enemy, to intimidate them.
Yeah.
And so, like the Sasquatch and Bigfoot are all integrated with our, like the native histories, like all the native elders always talk about that. And I was like, and it just, came to me, and I'm like, is this, it seems to be like a regular thing that happens quite often, is this house slapping, because that is going into their enemies. Well, I'm just going to say like their enemy's zone or the enemy's area. I'm not saying that they're all like that, but it's kind of like, I just did this and you didn't catch me,
Or
and I've one upped you.
or the Sasquatch themselves. Okay, you got to learn how to hide yourself. You're this, look how big we are compared to the humans, but we hide ourselves and we have to learn to do it. So, okay, your turn. You got to get in there and smack it and get out without them seeing you. That's an awesome way to think of it. That's a new one for me, and that makes perfect sense.
Yeah, it does. I know I would say it was just maybe a week ago or even less than that where I just came across this. And I asked that question to Barton Nunley went on his live yesterday. And, of course, they're like, we don't really know. And it's true. We don't know. But I think it's an idea maybe that it has some, maybe some truth to it, because there's a possibility with it. But speaking of Sasquatch or Bigfoot, why don't we tell about your little trip, your hike after your surgeries when maybe you shouldn't have been hiking up a mountain?
For sure, yeah. Just to let everybody know real quick, I've had other things happen through my childhood. I had one thing, I just want to tell this quick story.
Yeah, for sure. Go ahead.
412 Laura Avenue. One event, me and my little brother, so it was an older house. Summertime, get really hot, no central air. So you had window units with the air conditioner. You kept the doors closed to all the different bedrooms. Me and my little brother, a year younger than me, were playing on my mom and dad's bed with Hot Wheels cars. All of a sudden,
As you do.
bam, bam, bam on the door. Go open the door. All the doors are closed in the hallway. No one is upstairs. The only other person in the house.
Oh, this wasn't like outside. This was
Oh,
like
that
the
was
bedroom door.
in the house. So someone in the hall upstairs was banging on this door, and I opened it. I thought it was my mom, and I opened the door, and no one was there. So close the door, go back to get on the bed, and bam, bam, bam again. And it scared me. And I have goosebumps remembering this event because it really affected both of us. And I ran, and some reason, I don't know why, I felt fear. And I ran, and I was pushing on the door, holding it. And it was like somebody was trying to get in. And I cannot tell you the goosebumps I have right now.
Jeez.
My little brother got up and ran over, and he was helping me, and the door was getting pushed open. Bam, bam. We start screaming for our mother, screaming. Finally, she gets upstairs, and it stops, and she opened that door, and she came in. She had been cooking downstairs. She had a wooden spoon in her hand. She smacks both of us with this. What are you guys doing? We wouldn't do it. Somebody was trying to get into the room. And she didn't believe. She goes, "Stop being great. Stop doing what you blah blah blah," and yelled at. We were completely freaked out, man. That was the only supernatural event that I could remember happening at that house. There was a house 2 doors down though with the kids that we played with, the Kraft family. Their house was haunted. We would be up in their 3rd floor. You'd hear footsteps in the hallway. You'd look in the hallway, there'd be nobody there. There'd be lights in the basement that would come on when nobody was in the house. They'd be pulling out. They said they'd see a purplish light in their basement, and they even have a working light bulb, they said, in their basement, but this light would come on. They'd go down there and nothing would be down there, and then they were leaving and the light come on and it looked like a person walked by the window. Ooh. So that happened. I've had 2 instances where I saw UFOs or UAPs. We travel a lot to Tampa and the Indian Shores area. Me and my daughter saw over the Gulf a blue disc-shaped something, just floating real slow over the Gulf. One night we were sitting there, was other people that were standing. We were all in awe, and it just slow, just real far out, maybe 500 yards off the beach. Everybody was standing there watching it. We couldn't believe what we were seeing. And then here in the house I live in now, I would say a few years ago, I was sitting outside, and I always say this to people. They ask me a lot. Well, you've had a lot of things happen to you. One thing I can say, if I could give anybody any advice about if maybe you see something, stop looking down at your phone. Take your earbuds out of your ears and look around. Look up. Pay attention. Like I said, always been an ultra detailed person. I people watch, I look around, I stare up. And I was just looking up, and I saw that kind of telltale tic tac kind of it was at dusk, and it was like changing colors real slow from blue to white to yellow to green. And it wasn't a plane, it was something different, and it was far. And let me tell you something, when you see things like that, the last thing on your mind is your phone. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. When it says, well, why didn't you film it? You're in awe. You're like, oh my God. And then after, you're kicking yourself.
You are, but a lot of people live their life through their phone, like you're saying, and and they're never going to notice these things. And that's part of it, is by staring, looking. And it's not, the last thing when you see something like that is to grab your phone. The last,
it
last
really
thought.
is. So what happened to me just this past spring in 2023 is, so I gave my Dogman interview. I think it was Michael Anthony's show, and Ernie Dabbio, who had an incredible Sasquatch event
fantastic encounter.
I believe, as somebody that's had a real experience with the cryptid, I there are cues I look to. There's a lot of, I call them cringeworthy, stories out, and I just will sometimes hear, and I'll actually be like embarrassed for people. And I can sniff them out easy. When you've had something happen, you know certain things to look for.
Yeah.
Ernie's
I can imagine.
I'm going to tell you, Ernie's is real. So he didn't believe in dog. If you watch, in fact, on Planet 412, my interview with Ernie, we speak of how we met. And he talked that he was watching Michael Anthony's interview of me, and he said he was one of those apers, they call them, that I find beyond ridiculous and ironic, that you believe in Bigfoot, but you can't believe in Dogman or other cryptids. There's something inherently wrong with that.
Agreed.
Yeah. He will openly admit, I didn't believe in Dogman. I didn't give it any thought. I thought it was fake. He watched my interview, and he said, I need to talk to this guy. He hunted me down and told me, I didn't believe in him. He says, I believe in them now. He said, I know. He said, I know you saw something like I did. And we are extremely good friends. We are ultra close. He's one of my best friends on the earth. And we had not met. He lives in the Cincinnati area of Ohio, and I'm up in the Youngstown area. So we're like 4 hours from each other. He was coming to Beaver Creek State Park, which is 40 minutes from Youngstown in East Liverpool, Ohio. And they were coming. He was asked to speak at a Bigfoot convention there, or conference in Beaver Creek. And he said, hey, me and my wife Lois, we're bringing our dog Tilly, and we're going to come. You want to meet us? Well, come to dinner. And we had dinner. I met the family, and they're like, hey, we were at this campsite at Beaver Creek because all the people that are in the conference that are going to speak are all at this one campsite. Do you want to come back and meet them and hang out for a little bit? I'm like, well, I'm 40 minutes from home. Yeah. So I went. We go, and it was really hard to find. They had trouble finding it, and it was in the middle of the park, and it just wasn't. It wasn't like marked. It was just, you had to look for like markers and stuff to find this place. And we went there. We met these people. I had never met any of these people in my life. And this one guy, you can look him up on Facebook. His name's Johnny Freeman. He's a psychic.
Okay.
So he comes up to me, And if you watch on Planet 412, my second video, I think it's, you won't believe what happened at Beaver Creek State Park. It's the second video.
Yeah.
Thing that I'll now is on there with pictures and an audio clip, which I gave you. And Johnny Freeman came up to me. There'll be a picture on the video and everything. He came up and he grabbed my arm, and I was like, "Whoa, bro! I'm from Youngstown. You don't walk up to somebody and grab their arm."
Yeah, yeah.
Can I help? Like, hey, I'm sorry. I apologize. I have to tell you, my name's Johnny Freeman. I'm a psychic, and right there, your first thought's kind of like, okay. And, I'm like, okay, well, can I help you? And he said, well, I have to tell you. He said, I was drawn to you, and he'll tell you this 100% is the truth. Said, I've never seen anyone with an aura like you before. He said, something is telling me that I have to tell you. And he pointed and he said, there's a trail over there that goes up this mountain here, or hill, or whatever you want to call it. And he said, there's supposed to be a portal, a rock outcropping, like this rock formation at the end of the trail that is supposed to be a portal that's frequented and has high strangeness that surrounds it, from everything from Sasquatch to paranormal happenings. And if you Google Beaver Creek State Park in Ohio and like put in supernatural, you'll get a crap load of stuff that happens there. I was on Dr. Russ Jones' show with his partner a month ago, and we were talking about Beaver Creek, and they perked up because both of them had major Bigfoot events in that park, where they were bluff charged. His partner Brad actually has 45 minutes of audio recordings of Bigfoots doing almost exactly what they do in the Sierra Sounds that Ron Martin,
the samurai chatter,
and the whoops and everything. It's so eerily similar. It's a different recording, not change. So he got it. They had tons of stuff happen, and he tells me, something's telling me, Johnny Freeman, that you need to go up this trail. So as you said, I had my left knee replaced a couple months before that. It was maybe even a month out or two. I should have been on 2 crutches. I only brought one to the campsite. And I was wearing a prosthetic. I just my prosthetic not long before that. So I laughed at him, like I'm laughing now. I'm like, well, hey, bro, I pulled up my leg. I'm like, I got a prosthetic. I just had my knee replaced. I'm not going up any trail, and you could see it. It was like, it started out like that, but then you could see it go like that. And he's like, I'm just telling you what I know. Something is telling me you got to go. So I marinated for 15, 20 minutes thinking of the stuff that's happened to me through my life, and what he just said to me, at this, I'm going. And I told Ernie, I said, hey, I'm going. He's like, what are you talking about? And I told him what he said, and he just kind of looked at me and he said, do what you got to do. And I went by myself, and it was hell. And it took me 30, 35 minutes, and it was hard, soaking wet by the time I got to the top of the trail. Horrible pain. There were moments when I was on all fours because it was like this. I had to put my crutch down and crawl, and I was thinking this whole time, oh crap, I got to go back down.
Not just going up, going back down, especially with one crutch and a amputated leg. Yes.
And as you're going up, this trail's getting thinner and more narrow, and also
crazy, man. You're crazy, Matt.
To your left, if you look down as it's getting higher, there's a stream that was on your level that now is 200 feet down. Jeez. If you fall off the side, you either get messed up horribly or killed. So I get to the top thing, and there is pictures of the track. I took pictures going up.
Yeah.
And it was the last section where I would have had to turn sideways and like put my back against the wall, like of this rock outcropping, and like walk sideways to get through the last part to get to this rock formation, the portal.
Mm-hmm.
I said, hell no, I'm not doing it. So I just kind of held on to a tree, and I looked, and I could see this formation of rocks. I don't know, maybe 7 yards from where I was, and I could see it. So there was a tree actually that had fallen, and I sat down on it. And again, everything is documented with pictures on that video. And I was there, and I just chilled out and started talking, and just I just wanted to come speak to you. I want to see you. I'm a brother. I don't mean any harm. I'm just here to, I forget everything I said. I just had good intentions. I spoke out loud. And internally, I was just in a good place. I was just trying to be friendly, peaceful. And I kept hoping something would happen, and nothing was happening. So finally, I'm like, well, I got to go back down. It was getting dark. And all of a sudden, it got deathly quiet. And all I could hear was the water running. No more. I'm in the middle of a state park.
Yeah.
No more crickets. No more squirrels or things running through the complete silence, other than the water in the stream. I heard nothing, and I got a feeling of something was going on. And I took my phone out, because I just, in my head, I'm like, well, the only thing I can do is I have my phone. Let me try what they do on ghost hunters. And I pulled my phone out, and I did an EVP recording, and I caught something, and I sent that to you.
Yeah. So why don't I turn this on? And I'm going to turn this on here in just 2 seconds.
Thank you for allowing me to be in your home.
What?
In your woods.
There you go.
Do you want to say anything?
A very noticeable grunt. And then there's 2 sets of 4 wood knocks. And just to let everybody know, I did not hear that with my own ears.
Is there anyone here, and how many of you are there?
And can I ask, did you like turn the audio up a little bit?
Is there
like
anyone out here?
For those wood knocks, did you go through and like turn it up a little bit so we could hear it a little bit better?
So the podcast Cryptid Creatures with Todd and Brian Brock, Brian improved the audio for that. So you can hear it when those 3 moments come up, the equalizer kind of picks up, and you can hear them a little more clear. They're enhanced. Brian Brock from Cryptid Creatures enhanced that sound for us so that we could hear that better.
Oh wow. Yeah, you can definitely hear that. Like you can hear the background noise where it kind of like the background ambient noise increases. So just so everyone knows that it's not like edited or anything like that.
No, not at all.
It's just all that is just the volume has increased. Just the volume has increased in it. Yeah.
100%. Yeah, that is anyone that is into the actual science of recordings, or they can have the original. If they have the original, they'll know there's nothing. I did nothing to that recording. There's nothing that was fake. That is 100% real. I heard none of it with my own ears. The one that blew all of it blows my mind because I didn't hear it. The one that gets me the most is the grunt, obviously, because
of course.
And I played it right back and was absolutely floored. And I couldn't believe what I heard. And I'm like, I have goosebumps now. And I stood up without my crutch, and I was like, thank you so much. And I like freaked out, was thank whatever. And, I played that for Ron Moorhead at Josh Dogman and Cryptid Conference. I played that for him 3 times. Mr. Moorhead is the one who recorded the Sierra sounds, the famous Sierra sounds. And well, the first time I played it, he looked at me and said, play it again. And then he went like this, play it again. And after 3, he looked at me and I said, well, what do you think, Mr. Moorhead? And he says, you got something there. I said, do you think that's a Bigfoot? He says, sure sounds like one to me. And everyone that's heard it has also agreed. I mean, you can tell 100% that's not me making that noise.
Yeah, that's some other auditory noise of a beast or creature that is able to make a grunt,
A grunt.
and there was nothing else there with you,
Yeah.
visually nothing. And like you said, that trail was really narrow up ahead. There's nothing like what's going to be up there. There's something there with you, but it's not there.
Some people had said maybe, and they said, we don't know, maybe if you would have looked up, maybe there was something above you, because where I was sitting when I recorded it, I had my back to this big rock thing.
Yeah.
Maybe could have been something up there looking over, but I didn't hear it grunt. That's the crazy part. And that's where the portal comes into play for me. I agree. That something's there. You can't see it or hear it, but it's there right next to you. And those digital recorders catch it. And it caught it. And I was floored.
I am too. That's amazing, Matt. I don't want to keep you any longer, but I just want to say thank you for, being the first guest here on Codega's Codex of Curiosities. And, once more, why don't you tell our listeners and our viewers where they can find you?
For sure. So if you go to Planet 412 on YouTube, and you can find my channel. And, like we said at the beginning, I just appreciate, you guys to subscribe and hit the notification bell and like. And like we said at the beginning, it's important to watch the videos through. If you don't want to watch it, let it play and walk away. It's very important, those watch hours for us YouTube creators, and the ads are important. If you don't want to watch the ads, buy the premium, and it still helps the channels. And, Rye, it's an honor to be your first guest. And, you and I have become really good friends. You're one of my best friends. And,
Me too, man.
And we're going to collaborate many times through the years. So I'm
looking forward to it. And again, Matt, thank you so much for being here. I'm going to throw you in the green room. If you can just wait till after the recordings, just to ensure that the recordings are all uploaded.
Oh, you know what? One more thing I just want to show you.
Yeah. Your shirt. Please.
So there's a link Rye will put. You can get this shirt off of Amazon, and he's going to show you the link. It's a really cool Dogman shirt. One of the coolest ones I've seen. So I just wanted to show everybody.
It's awesome. It's awesome. Yeah. Thank you so much, Matt. And I should have the link like right in here. I think I can put a link in. If not, well, there'll be a link in the show notes, of course. And of course, there'll be links to Matt's YouTube channel and to his Facebook group as well. And anything else you want in there, that's no problem. So, Matt, thank you so much again for being part of the Codex of Curiosities.
It was an honor.
All right, everyone. I was blown away by Matt's stories, and what about you? What was the most intriguing? I don't know. It was heart-wrenching as well. That first his near-death experience is something that, he tells you the nitty-gritty side of like actually dying and being there and saying goodbye, and I'm sorry. That was heart-wrenching. And he's had so many experiences, and it seems like it's something to do with his family. Like there's something to do with his family. And we've seen this when someone has an experience. It's almost like they open a door, open a gateway, and they open the floodgates to have more and more experiences. And definitely Matt has done that. So again, everyone, just one last thing here. As I'm doing my finale here, just one last thing.
Click that like. If you're new here, subscribe and have the bell hit for notifications to stay up to date on all of the new content.
And with that, ensure the light is always lit.
I look forward to our next adventure together as we navigate the mysteries that lie ahead. Until our paths cross again, keep your curiosity wandering and ensure the light remains lit.